Section 9 of the Diary of a Russian Lady. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Tom Shoesmith. The Diary of a Russian Lady by Barbara Doukhovsky. Chapter 9. Winter in St. Petersburg. To my great delight, Mamma decided to pass the winter in St. Petersburg. I was enchanted to meet my pages again. We contrived to encounter everywhere. One evening I went to the circus, accompanied by my aunt, the Princess Kudashev, as chaperone. Entering the circus, I looked round for my young cavaliers, who waited for me at the appointed place of meeting. On our right was an empty box. I signalled to them, and they stepped into it, appropriating it in spite of the energetic protestations of the circus grooms. I enjoyed my page's neighbourhood immensely. We were all of us in buoyant spirits, and became wildly gay. I declared suddenly that I should like something to drink, and my worthy aunt, who was propriety incarnate, looked horribly shocked when the pages began to uncork a bottle of lemonade, apprehending that the spectators would take my innocent beverage for champagne. Princess Mimi Trubetskoy, a jolly playmate of my childhood, came to pass Christmas in St. Petersburg. We were both glad to be together again. Having known one another from infancy, we had many interests and tastes in common. Mimi was such a dear, delightful girl, and we had an uncommonly good time together. In our daily walks we used to meet a handsome, blustering officer, who managed to give us a good stare each time we passed him in the street. We decided one day, Mimi and I, to fling a pillow balloon, in order to know which of us attracted his attention, and crossed to the other side of the street. Mimi went on the left, and I on the right, and, oh, triumph! Our follower came after me. I was very flattered, and rejoiced at my victory over Mimi. Her companion, a charming old lady who had once been governess to her, seeing that the affair was taking a serious turn, hurried us off home. That officer had been extremely useful to me one frosty day. He picked me up when I stretched myself at full length on the slippery pavement, and, profiting by the opportunity, he murmured sotto voce compliments into my willing ear. A young official, Mr. Ladygensky, occupied an apartment adjoining our drawing-room. One evening, recalling with Mimi the old schoolroom days, we played hide-and-seek, and, profiting by the absence of our neighbour, I hid myself in his bedchamber. Mimi having found me, we began to examine with much curiosity the frivolous pictures that adorned the walls of his bachelor apartment, which was indeed very improper in us. What would Ladygensky have thought of us if he had caught us in his room? He paid us a visit a few days afterwards, and I decided at the first sight that our neighbour was not nice at all. I could even by no stretch of imagination find him passable. He looked moth-eaten, and was quite too old for my taste, 30 at least. He came nearly every day to see us, entering our drawing-room, a bouquet in one hand and a box of bonbons in the other. It was evident that he took more than an ordinary interest in me, but I took none in him, however. Nevertheless, in a very short time he became a nearly acknowledged suitor, forgetting that in questions of marriage there are two people to be considered. Ladygensky was looked upon as an exceedingly promising young man, and was spoken of by indefatigable matchmakers as a suitable marriage for me. They said I would be an idiot if I refused him. Horrid meddling old cats! As a simple acquaintance he was well enough, but could I accept the love of such a one? I didn't want to marry him. I didn't want to marry anyone. The time for that sort of thing had not come, and the right man hadn't yet arrived. I should surely have to marry one day, but the later the better, for I hadn't got the solid domestic virtues which one wants in a wife. Besides, I was in no hurry to give up my freedom. Most people think that marriage is the sole aim of a girl's life, but I chose to differ from them, for I despised a girl who sold herself for gold, and as for me, I was not to be appropriated against my will, certainly. I began to hate Ladygensky with some intensity, and had made up my mind I shouldn't marry him, even if we two happened to be shipwrecked on a desert island. I was always alarmed when my love affairs seemed to be approaching matrimonial engagements, and hated all the men who were in the mood for marriage. I knew just when to draw the line when they wanted to propose to me, and managed to keep my suitors sufficiently at a distance to prevent any of them from making an offer. It was now the case with poor Ladygensky. His chances were very small indeed. The warmer his manner became, the more I froze. If he had eyes in his head, he ought to have seen how I detested him, but he was not a man to take a hint, and the deprecating glances I threw in his direction met with no visible acknowledgment, and he could hardly be made to understand that his company was an intrusion. I grew deadly sick of my unwelcome suitor, who was becoming the nightmare of my life. The sight of his face acted on me as an ice-cold shower-bath, but he continued to force his hateful attentions upon me, and was not easy to break with. The moment for decisive action had arrived. I felt that I must put an end to all this business, once for all, and take measures to suppress him. As my rebuffs had not the slightest effect upon him, I planned an experiment to cure him of his passions swiftly. I knew that he could hear every word pronounced in our drawing-room, and I addressed myself to an imaginary interlocutor, making disastrous revelations of my sentiments toward our neighbor. "I find Ladygensky perfectly horrid," I said in a very loud voice with a very strong accent on horrid, and put on the crowning touch in saying that his whole aspect was disgusting, a positive eye-torture. It was candid, at any rate. This little maneuver proved perfectly successful, and my purpose was attained. For several days after that we saw nothing of Ladygensky, and I rejoiced in his absence. But soon things took another turn. Money had become scarce of late, and my parents found their pecuniary difficulties increasing. I had to make up my mind to a quieter life, so I decided to marry the first decently marriageable man who should come my way, and after mature reflections I came to the conclusion that Ladygensky was to be called back again, and that I must make it right with him. I had been too hot-headed for a dowerless girl like me, and was determined to mend matters roughly. The important thing just then was that I should recover ground with Ladygensky, which I had evidently lost. I would have given worlds to have undone what I had done. Ladygensky had not actually said anything that I could take as an offer of marriage, but he had gone very near it, and being on the point of proposing to me, if he was to speak now it would be something definite, and so I decided to give him hope and encouragement. I sat down and wrote a letter in which I expressed regret in being deprived of his society, and told him that he was to forget the stupid proceedings of my monologue, invented to tease him, and made him understand that I was ready now to accept his offer. I enclosed my note in a book that Ladygensky had lent me, and sent it with our maid Olga. I waited in a fever of impatience for his answer, desperately afraid lest my letter had not safely reached its destination. Suppose Mamma should catch Olga in the corridor and discover my letter? At last Olga came back with the answer. With fingers trembling I broke open the envelope and read the following phrase: "It does not suit me to be trifled with any longer, so please forget all about me." Oh, the shame, the humiliation experienced by me! And just at that moment, to my horror, I heard Mamma asking Ladygensky, through the wall of our room, to come and dine with us at the restaurant. How on earth could I face him? My only hope was that he would refuse, but he answered that he would be delighted to come. What was I to do? I could not plead a sudden indisposition. Mamma wouldn't believe it, for I was so distressingly healthy in appearance. Small wonder, then, that my heart sank within me when Ladygensky came walking into the restaurant, clean-shaven, a white gardenia in his buttonhole. I was in the most awfully awkward position, and felt upon thorns all through dinner. Ladygensky settled himself beside me, perfectly at his ease. His voice was as usual cool and quiet, but I could not pluck up courage to look at him, and steadily refused to meet his eyes, assuming a wooden expression, and remained tongue-tied, giving my whole attention to the contents of my plate, with a longing to crawl under the table. After dinner Ladygensky invited himself to come and take tea with us, but I received him very ungraciously, being in a very beastly humour, and did not attempt to conceal my vexation in having to endure his presence. I made myself as disagreeable as possible, and answered him in monosyllables, glancing nervously from time to time at the clock on the mantelpiece, but he showed no inclination to rise, and would not leave my side. I sent him mentally to Lucifer, that little abomination. Mamma, rather surprised at my want of courtesy, was engaged all through the evening in the serious business of keeping our guest in a good temper. Losing my patience at last, I went to bed demonstratively, leaving Ladygensky alone with Mamma. I was sure that I had shown him clearly enough that I did not want to have anything more to do with him. It was the last time I saw his face. He went away the next day, bag and baggage, without even saying good-bye. So much the better. I did not miss my departed admirer. He might have gone to Jericho for all I cared. We came back to Dalkik at Easter, but for a short while, for my aunt Staritsky, Mamma's sister, who lived in Tiflis, the capital of the Caucasus, invited us to come and spend some time with her. The end of section 9.